Welcome to Eye Clinic Sulzbach. Today we show you the first preloaded DMEK. DMEK is a routine surgery and we've got used to it. But while the implantation can be quite well learned by experienced surgeons, the preparation of the delicate lamella is still a risk factor for transplant loss and primary transplant failure. And this is the reason why more and more transplantation centers rather use a precut lamella, which comes from specialized tissue banks like the Knappschaft tissue bank Sulzbach, who is specialized for precut lamellar transplants. So the next step is the preloaded DMEK, which we will show today in the DMEK RAPID cartridge implantation system. This is certainly a milestone because tissue is not only prepared and pre-cut in the eye bank, but also already preloaded in this patented cartridge system. So the surgeon receives a completely preloaded system comparable to a preloaded intraocular lens shooter as the cataract surgeons use it. So the surgeon only takes out the cartridge from the box and has a ready-to-use system and can implant the lamella directly into the eye without further manipulation. And before implantation, we first have a short look how the preparation in the clean room happens. The detachment is done with the liquid bubble technique, which we have published back in 2014, I think. To do this, we first go through the trabecular meshwork, which is a pigmented line here, into the subdecimate space. Okay, then we change to a blunt instrument. We overcome the Schwalbe line, which is a zone of higher adherence, and then we continue into the subdecimate space until we have a reliable cleft. Once we overcome the Schwalbe line, we have no more resistance and it goes relatively easy into the subdecimate space. Yeah. And we can now use trypan blue to detach this lamella very elegantly. And go. And thus, within a few seconds, the entire decimate membrane is detached. And this is done without any contact. This means that we do not touch the delicate endothelial cells at any time. The elegance of this technique is that only the decimate side is stained, which means that the dye does not come into direct contact with the endothelial cells, but only with the decimate below. So we have a very homogeneous staining only of the decimate side. And we've now punched only the decimate side. And we can now make the shark fin mark. It's under medium. And this is a very elegant technique to assure a clear orientation of the graft during surgery. There are, of course, different marking techniques for this. You can paint an S or a P or a question mark, but more elegant is to mark this shark fin. Yeah, it's quite easy, done, and visible. Yeah. This way we can have a visible marking at any time of the operation, and we can verify the correct orientation at any time of the surgery. And now we can detach the lamella. For this we use the olive spatula, which is part of the Geuder preparation set. The lamella has been detached already and only sticks slightly in the marginal areas. And we lift up the graft without touching the endothelial cells. And now the membrane is prepared and can be loaded. Good. Now we are ready for the implantation. The graft has been delivered in the preloaded cartridge. This means that I have no longer any preparation and can focus on surgery. I can take the preloaded cartridge out of the box, out of the medium container. And it is important that the graft is held horizontally so no air bubbles come into the cartridge. This is not the case. The graft is here at the rear opening. We have both the rear valve cap and the front cap, the valve, and we can now take it out from the holder. This is a simple clip mechanism. It's quite easy. And the graft can be restained if necessary. It's not mandatory, but if you want, it's possible, and I show it how it works. So we use again trypan blue. For a few seconds. And then we flush the medium out of the cartridge. The valves prevent the graft from being flushed out, so we work completely in a closed system. This patented cartridge was developed at the KHERI Eye Research Institute of the Eye Clinic Sulzbach, together with the Geuder company and the German Society for Tissue Transplantation, the DGFG. And now we flush out the final bubbles, and the crucial thing is that the graft is quality controlled and validated after loading, so that the surgeon is guaranteed to get a certified cell count, and the graft is not taken out afterwards. It's completely in the closed system and secure. Okay, so we now have a beautiful graft ready for implantation. We connect the syringe, and that's it. Preparation is finished, and we can focus for implantation. Good. The implantation is done through a normal clear cornea tunnel incision, 2.4 millimeters. And the important thing is that the paracenteses are watertight, so that we have as little flow as possible in the anterior chamber. And that the nasal paracentesis is really applied nasally, because we will pick up the graft throughout the paracentesis. And the pupil has to be narrow, of course, so we put some acetylcholine into the anterior chamber for meiosis. So, we have 3 steps in total. The first step is the uridectomy, the second step is the decimetorexis, and the third is the implantation itself. For the uridectomy, which is an under-uridectomy at the 6 o'clock position, a small incision is enough. It doesn't need to be too large. We just have to prevent a pupillary block by the gas bubble. And we grasp the iris. And that's it. I don't recommend a YAG laser iridotomy because we need to have 100% safety that it's open. We control it here, so it's open. That's it. Okay, Markierung. And for the decimeter axis, we need to mark with 8 millimeter. This can be done, for example, with a not too sharp trephine. We just punch it, a quarter turn is sufficient. This is pure epithelial punching, and we use trypan blue to mark it so we can see the limits again. Yeah, so it's now well visible, the limits of the necessary decimate. And the decimeter axis itself is done with a price hook. To do this, we go once around circumferentially and cut the decimate. We should always cut a little bit larger so that we avoid overlapping edges. We can lift the edges. Das ist ein Breitenspatel. And the actual detachment is not done with a sharp price hook, but with a very blunt, wide or broad spatula, so that we do not tear off any stromal lamellae, which would be visually relevant. So the decimate is out. We can still find some remnants to be removed. So we restain it. Here is some remnants, but mainly the decimate is out, but there are still some very slight remnants. Here at the cataract tunnel is a little bit okay. Yes, and then that's it. So we are ready for the implantation. And the lamella is ready to use in the injector system. We just take it off, or it takes the valves off, and now we have the preloaded graft, which is still in the large transport chamber, and we push it forward into the small injection channel. To do that, we hold it vertically, and then we can push it forward in a very controlled manner, only driven by the flow of the fluid. Okay, and now we are ready for implantation. Good. An important aid in implantation is picking up or collecting the injected lamella from the opposite side with the irrigation cannula. Doing so, we make sure the correct orientation in the anterior chamber, and we avoid an upside down position and the necessity of doing a flip. The graft is spread with massage by switching off the infusion line with a shallow anterior chamber. And now we unfold it. The graft has a correct orientation. Here is the marking, so perfect. the graft is lying the right way. But the lamella is not centered in this case. Before centering the graft, we stabilize it with a small air bubble. It's not necessary to have it that large. A very small bubble is enough. We can now grasp the implant. Yes, so mostly this maneuver is not necessary by positioning it only by massage, but if not centered, you have this chance. So the final fixation is done by gas, SF6 gas, not air. This has reduced the rebubbling rate considerably. And also, the final contact lens ensures that we don't have any gas loss. And thus we have a final situation, and that's it. Okay, I think it was quite visible that the implantation remains completely the same to the surgeon. The only difference is that all the preparation preoperatively is skipped, and the transplant is delivered completely in this closed system, and the surgeon can focus on that what he is best trained, the implantation. So I think that the DMEK RAPID technique will improve the clinical results of the DMEK. Thank you very much.